This podcast is rated R for restricted. Under 17 requires accompanying parent or adult guardian. Mission to 50.
This week we are watching the 9th, or I guess it was the 11th back when we froze the list back in 2016. Yep. It is now the 9th, so it's climbed 2 spots. It is The Fellowship of the Ring, directed by Peter Jackson, came out in 2001. This is the first in a series of 3 films that touted some of the largest budgets and box office returns at the time. The trilogy cost $281 million to make and over $2.9 billion it made at the box office. Nice. It was nominated for 30 Academy Awards and won 17 of those. Its influence has been felt throughout movies, TV, and pop culture since then. And since we are starting with the first in the series, and TC has never seen any of these, we're going to do our typical 20-second spoiler-free reviews and then get into a long conversation, which TC is also, I'm going to ask him to start that. But yeah, let's go. 20 seconds on the clock, TC.
All right. And go. I'm sorry, guys. This is going to be a tough road for me. While I was impressed with a lot of the production value and stuff like that, I just cannot get into this fantasy world, man. I don't know. It's just, and half the time I thought I was watching Harry Potter. So I got
so hard to hear.
I got so confused, and I was like, "Oh right, this isn't Harry Potter." Yeah, I don't know, guys. I had a hard one.
That sucks, TC. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm not. But hey, look, I'm not in. This was a fucking terrible movie. I don't want to watch this ever. I was nowhere near that at all. It was just a lack of being able to find myself in the middle of the lore and that fantasy world, and I just, I don't know what it was either.
It didn't hit for you,
maybe.
Huh?
And I'm excited. Maybe the next one. Maybe I'll be in a different mood.
Well, this is
it'll hit me, but
you might start
it dated.
Again. I think though now that you know these characters and stuff, it might be that you can kind of move along with it a bit better and
because I was learning all sorts of stuff and it was so much to keep track of and.
It really, because it wasn't until the Return of the King that it really got all the awards and stuff too, and I think there's a bit of a retroactive appreciation of all 3 films at once.
I see.
Yeah, that for sure happens.
That's my 20, 30, 40, whatever it is.
So it's worrisome, but
TC, cover your ears.
There's always hope. TC, in these dark
monsters
times.
were cool.
Yeah, there you go.
John, how about you go second?
It out.
All right. I'm going to try it. I don't know if I can do this in 20 seconds. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
I am ready. I'm not ready, but I have to do this.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, fine. Still, I love this amazing prologue with Cate Blanchett's voice. I love the scene of Elrond with the arrow whizzing through his hair. It's just some of my favorite battle scenes and the way they stage these stuff. A shit ton of close-up character reactions, which gets a little annoying sometimes. But man, the epicness of this, the casting of this, Ian McKellen as Gandalf is just an all-time great. There, I'm out.
Nice.
All
right, there's going to be a lot of hyperbole coming from me. My 20 seconds is coming in, okay?
Go. Can you do it? How much hyperbole can you put in 20 seconds?
Let's find out, all right?
Let's go.
This movie is magic. It's a masterpiece among masterpieces. Each element of the film is individually best in its class, yet the experience of watching it is far greater than the sum of those parts. I think it's possibly the best film ever made, and it makes me happy that I've been alive to experience it. It's life-affirming, guys.
Somebody wrote his dad.
Yeah, not a fucking shit.
Life-affirming. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from, TC. So this is going to be a bit of a little bit of a clash.
Yeah, no, I trust me when I say I was, almost more disappointed that I was going to have to come in and not be excited about it. Anything else. I'm not a fantasy guy.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
But the Star Wars stuff,
even Harry Potter was a stretch.
You wouldn't say you're.
I'm not a fan of those either.
I'm not a sci-fi guy. I'm not a fantasy guy.
Star Wars hit for you, so I had hope, that if Star Wars hit for you, that this would, because it's a real bummer.
And you've liked the fantasy Ghibli stuff.
Well, it's animation,
right? That's even more of a stretch for some people.
I don't know. It's different. I'm sorry, but some of those slow-mos where the hair's flying around, I'm just like, Jesus Christ! I'm not in the. I'm not in that world.
Very happy you did not watch the extended version.
Right. I just wasn't in the world with them, I think, and that was kind of the problem. I'm also not a huge Cate Blanchett fan.
So kicking it off, I love the intro with her voice, like that, just the black screen and her, and then the whispering with the elfish language and stuff. Like that's Such a great way to transition into the.
I bet you can. I bet they workshopped the hell out of this.
That was the hardest part of the movie. This movie specifically was the beginning.
Because you had so much that you have to convey, and you've got to somehow convey it if you can in an interesting way. But you've got so much that you've got to cover before you can just get this whole thing started. And it's still. I think it's beautiful. I think I love it. I love Cate Blanchett's voice because I love how she's like smirking almost at times and dark at times, and she just has a nice range. And all the while, it's a lovely British sort of tone, But yeah, it's just great. But again, that I always say the one scene I always think of, it's like the arrow in Elrond's hair. That's like my favorite thing. He's sitting there like bravely looking forward, calling out battle commands or whatever as arrows are flying around him. It's so awesome. But yeah.
And TC, I mean, I don't know. This might. I watched this movie and I have a hard time not remembering seeing it in the theaters. But then again, I've watched this movie once a year, every year since this movie's come out.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, this is the movie.
You're
right
a
here.
super fan.
And I just spent a week and a half watching behind the scenes. I watched the theatrical cut. I watched the extended version with 4 different commentary tracks. That's 4 more times, and then there's 2 different behind the scenes. I watched all of it, and I'm not sick of it at all. It only makes me more appreciative of what this movie did and how it all fits together. Like, it is a fucking miracle that this movie works in the ways that it does. And I'm, it's too bad you couldn't get into it. And I want to hear, I guess why the characters didn't hit. But I find it kind of amazing that this movie is a special effect movie. And if it was just a special effect movie, it would be one of the best that has ever existed.
So the vision, I could see the green screen on their faces all the time. Like, that doesn't bother you?
No.
At all? Huh, okay. That bothers me.
Maybe it's because
it dated it big time.
Okay.
I was like, I can tell that's green screen on all of them.
I can't
There's
tell.
a tinge on them at some points.
I think it's because I've watched it once a year, every year. So it's like, I can't tell.
You're so used to it.
Yeah.
You don't even notice it.
That's fair.
So
I got sick of his stare, too. Like, his stupid bug-eyed stare where he's all nervous. Like,
Who?
I don't know. I just,
What's his Frodo.
Name? I don't even know his fucking name. Frodo.
The camera definitely lingers on.
Honestly,
faces
Harry
a lot.
Potter.
It's
I'm gonna just start calling him Harry because I was so lost. I was losing the story and forgetting that I wasn't watching Harry Potter so much. I was like, wow, these are similar in the sense of the characters, right? You got the old guy with the white hair. You got the other old guy that's pissed.
You got old Dumbledore, Gandalf.
Right. I know. I was like, I was so lost at points, and I was like, wait, what do the elves do again? Why are they important? Who They're the most important ones? Are they the strongest ones? Fuck if I know. These little guys are walking around, and why does he have the ring again other than someone gave it to him? Like, that's really the only thing. That's the whole thing that drives this is some guy was just like, hey, I'm going to give you a ring. You got to go do something with it. And everyone was like, yeah, no, now he's the guy. We're going to follow you. I mean, I couldn't. I'm sorry. I started reducing it down to that, and I was just like, the wizardry stuff is not my thing. And, yeah. But I mean,
wow.
the cool parts were just how many different places he goes in his travels. I think that's kind of the adventure part that I didn't dislike at all. That part of the storytelling was great.
Yep. You got to there's those places that are not green screen at all because they fucking created the whole scene, like with the Hobbiton and things like that, where they just built the damn place.
That's kind of just
so,
it's interesting listening to you, TC, because I have kind of the opposite reaction because a lot of movies these days it's all CG and I can tell it's CG. So you're seeing, it sounds like you're seeing on the characters, the real characters themselves, they're against a green screen, but the background is real. And I guess I'd prefer that over what we have now, which is they're on green screen. You can't tell they're on green screen, but everything looks CG behind them. You know what I mean?
They've removed the entire
right. Everything
unless
is
it's the volume wall stuff. Right?
And what stands out to me in this movie is the way the camera moves around what looks real, and it is real because they use miniatures throughout the movie and they meld it with CG. Like a lot of the times where you see a tower and you're moving around it, it's all real and it looks really good. I think it looks the best out of any movie I've seen with this type of fantasy stuff because they don't build models like this anymore.
I see.
So that's the kind of stuff that I focus on. But I guess I don't see what you're seeing, but I don't doubt that it's there because I've heard the same kind of thing. But when I watch it, I'm like, no fucking way. This looks the best out of anything. I'm just I got rose-tinted glasses on over here, basically.
I mean, no, it happened to me the other day where I watched a show that was 4x3. And I remember it being fucking great. and I turned it on, and it was 4:3 ratio, and it was TV cable.
I can't
TV
watch this
quality, and I literally said to myself, "What the fuck do I don't remember this. This is terrible," and I had to turn it off. So it is possible too that like whatever you've identified that visual with when you really loved it that first time, that's what stuck with you entirely to watch.
And it was a great time to have those come out, know that there were those 3 that were made, and go and see the first one in the theater and be amazed by it, and know that you have the next 2 coming because they filled them all at once. You might not have been a fantasy guy, but I am. I'm a big fantasy geek, and this stuff, like the Tolkien stuff, is kind of like the bedrock of a lot of the fantasy stuff. And so, some people might even criticize it as being dry or whatever, but man, this guy did so much backstory shit for his work. Like his son has a 12 volume series that's like part of some of his stories, but part of like other stories that were published, just going into detail of what Tolkien did in terms of like creating the backstory and creating the world and the languages and everything. And it's just, it's so cool to see this stuff taken like so like seriously, so much with so much detail and so much depth. Like Blade Runner does this really well too. It's just like there's a seriousness to the world, to the fantasy part or the sci-fi part, and that's, I don't know, I don't think any film does it this much in terms of just loving the material, trying to craft the world as if it's real and tell the story as if it's real. I think that's what is so cool about it. I don't quite know why that's so cool to me, but it's one of my favorite things.
It's transportive,
whether it's sci-fi
right?
or,
It transports you somewhere, right? I mean, isn't that what you want in a movie? Whether it's like, a lot of movies do it in like the drama where you get caught up in someone's story, or the fantasy part you get caught up in the world. This one, like,
that is a movie that's far away.
And then, which explains why,
yeah.
once you've lost that connection into the world,
well, yeah, if you lost that,
in trouble.
But maybe you're right, Denny. It's like, how far does it transport you? And with fantasy or sci-fi, you're going a long way.
Yeah.
if it works.
And if you think it looks like crap, then you're not going along with it, right?
Yeah,
or if you think the CG stands out and that's all you're thinking about, or if you're confused by the characters and you're just like, who the fuck is this? Why is this happening? Mm-hmm. Then that's another wall.
Wait a minute, where's Dumbledore? And wait a minute, is that Voldemort?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened to me multiple times. I was like, oh, that's right. That's not that guy. It's the other. It's someone else. I keep forgetting that. I was like, this guy seems like a jerk this time. Oh, wait, not this time. It's the first time I've seen this, and that's not, Dumbledore. I don't know, man.
That's
gonna be a long road.
I'm just gonna pretend like everyone thinks this is the best movie ever because I'm just gonna continue talking about it. Yeah.
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
I
mean,
okay.
So you're talking a lot about the intro sequence, John. It is amazing. They actually got a studio note. Like they had a bunch of different cuts of this movie. We can get to the making of. It's extremely unique. I'm not sure any movie's been made like this.
Blend it in as we go,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I mean, all these movies, like you said, were made at the same time. This one came out first, obviously. They didn't know how to start it. They had this whole sequence with the backstory, and they actually had it further on in the movie, and they were going to transition from Bilbo's book to the backstory, which was a certain period of time later in the movie. Right. First cut of this movie, this first one, 4.5 hours long.
Holy
Just to throw that
shit.
out there. The extended version is over half an hour longer than the one you watched, TC, which is 3 hours long.
Oh my God.
So it's...
I mean, I can see why that happens, though. And there's just...
There's
honestly,
so
some
much.
of it would have probably been better off for me to see longer bits of if I...
I don't know, but it's just more like lingering on people's faces.
It's more character development. It's more
I
location development. It's kind of unnecessary. Like, I watched the... I mean, if you're a fan, it's fun, but... I'm a huge fan of this movie, but I'm not a fan of the extended edition because it gets boring.
I see.
For me, I don't know. John might think differently. I don't know.
No. They had the books, the movie. Like the key difference between the books and the movie is they just have to take so much out. Mm-hmm. Not just like different events or whole sections. They just have to take out because there's just not time to say it. But even the journey is much longer than the movie lets you think.
The period of time where Gandalf leaves Frodo's house and comes back to warn him is like 20, 30 years.
Right,
wow.
exactly. So that's for starters, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's an example, but that's kind of happening over and over again in terms of like when they're going somewhere or getting somewhere. There's a lot of time that's passing on their journeys in the book that the movie just does not. It's not going to sit there and do this, or it's not going to even say like it would be. Even then, it would take too much time to be like 30 years later. It just wouldn't work very well, and also like sort of mess with the immediacy of the feeling of the movie. You want a movie to feel like you're moving along, kind of. I think it'd be pretty weird if it's like Gandalf's there, and then you just do some black screen for a while to say, And then 30 years passed, and then Gandalf shows up. It would just not work so well.
That's
So
true.
I imagine they were just thinking constantly, how do we keep what's important, but we have to like make this streamlined. We have to cut a lot of stuff out.
And even though they cut a lot of stuff out in the screenplay, they still filmed a lot of it. Like the stuff you watch in the extended version is fully fleshed out. They even added special effects. It looks the same, right? It's not like deleted scenes where it looks like shit and they didn't color correct it or anything. It looks finished. And they were chopping it off like as they were editing it, like they were finishing everything.
Wow.
It's like the most bizarre way to make a movie I've ever heard of, like filming three at once, editing three at once.
Everything in and then cut it all out?
Yeah.
Kind of.
That's basically it to see what worked.
Where have I heard
Rearrange
that
things.
before? I think I've heard that before in editing or mixing music. Like, you just keep taking it's sticking in my head that I've heard that before about some approach. Maybe it's to mastering or something where what you're supposed to do is just keep removing things
until there's silence.
Yeah, you just keep going all the way.
Shut your
Yep,
computer
keep
off.
going. Yep, no,
Masterpiece.
that guitar sucked. Let's.
I don't know where I heard that. Some goddamn musician may be talking about that. That's what they did during mixing, is they just kept taking things away. But anyway, I don't know. But yeah,
That sounds
seems like
difficult.
really
you
odd.
start with a wall of noise and you start lowering volumes. I think you should go the other way,
just
right?
remove instruments until you're like, yeah, it was good when we just had the guy and the guitar. That was fun.
That's right.
Go ahead, Bob Dylan. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a movie I won't see.
But what I was getting to when we got off the tangent there is that the intro sequence is really good at the beginning. It works really well. It transitions with the narration. I don't even question Cate Blanchett's voice, and even when she comes in later, I'm like, oh, she's an immortal elf. So she's like, she knows all this shit. She's talking to us. Like, it works. And then the transition from all of the ring stuff as time fast forwards a massive amount, and then it goes to Frodo sitting underneath the tree reading a book. Like, that is the nicest, to me, transition of exposition dump, like a 7-minute prologue, to now you're in the story.
No, I love it.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think it's great, and they had to know this was a monstrous task as they were doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they had the same problem with the Amazon original show.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's just so much. Like, they're creating even another world because it didn't exist, right? They're not using it anymore. So it's like they had to do that. I remember the first 2 episodes, I was like, Jesus Christ, there's way too much to understand for this world they're building.
Have you watched that, Denny?
No, I don't like to watch things that aren't. I don't know. I don't like to
good.
ruin these things. I watched the Star Wars prequels. I watched
a
lot of other things.
It doesn't mess with the.
It's a totally different story.
Naomi.
So.
But it's all about Galadriel early days, and she's this awesome elf warrior. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
Nikki and I watched both seasons, and we both really enjoyed it. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't mess with. It feels separate enough and far enough away in time from the movies that it doesn't mess.
It doesn't feel like low budget Peter Jackson.
No, it doesn't.
It's definitely not low budget. I'll tell you that much.
Well,
Well, 250 million or whatever.
No, I know. No, it's well produced, but it also just feels far enough removed that it doesn't mess with it.
Okay.
It's like this is like thousands of years before. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Right?
It's
We'll
like
see
totally
how
different.
Lord of the Rings out I am after this series of 3 movies with all of this research I'm doing. We'll
I'm
see.
sure.
I might have to take a little break.
We'll wait.
find
We'll
out.
wait till the 3rd season comes out, and then you can binge it.
Okay.
But Nikki and I really have liked it. We watched both seasons and just went right through both of them.
Nice.
It is, and TZ said it is really well produced. Like it's.
I don't doubt it looks expensive.
Looks
but,
fantastic.
I mean, a lot of shows do these days,
That's
but
about
it looks
my
too much.
opinion.
Part of the reason I think this movie looks so good is because it looks lived in. A lot of the shit with high budgets, it doesn't look lived in. And
That's true.
what they did in this movie is they built props, they aged them, they broke them, and then they repaired them, and then they put them in the movie to give the feeling that these were real things. They didn't just create a sword and hand it to somebody,
Yeah.
They didn't go to a shop and be like, hey, do you have any swords? Yeah, can we rent like 100 swords? Every single thing in this movie was handmade. Every single thing.
Not only that, but I bet it feels like all of these guys were nerds and were like, all right, what does this sword got to look like? What did it have to go through?
Yep.
What did they
Review
loved the
period,
material,
reject,
right?
review, reject. All right, that's one sword. Good job. Now make 300 more swords.
That's right.
Yeah.
The orcs are not going to have a fucking sword. They're going to have the hook with the thing, and it's got to look.
All of the ring
awful,
rays have different designed swords, and there was intention behind. You can't even notice it really when you watch it, but like it.
They probably fucking knew
it
each
affects-
of the 9 and what those guys' names were and what their backstory was and what they had because that exists. That already exists in the friggin' lore.
Right.
And they had Christopher Lee
so-
on set who knew all of this because he's the biggest Lord of the Rings nerd of all time. So they would frequently go to him and be like, so what do you think? And he's like, well, actually, this is pretty close to this side book. Like you can get
Right.
they're not even like part of the series, right? You can get like what are they, like dictionaries or like history books that give backstories to this.
Like his son wrote the 12. There's 12 volumes, but there's the
and it's just
there's
back. It's not even a story, right? It's just history.
No, it's history.
Yeah.
And either
Can you believe that,
history,
TC? Did you know this existed? This isn't even a story with characters. It's just this happened. It didn't really happen, but it happened as a backstory to these freaking books.
And sometimes,
Right.
even like Lord of the Rings, as you're reading it, it goes into it a little bit more than you really need to. At once, it's like, oh, there were the Bagginses, but then it like goes into all the fucking family history for like 10 pages.
You're like, I don't care about the hobbits. Get along with
like
it.
The prologue, and the
boy.
prologue, like if you ever read the Fellowship of the Ring, just you can get away with skipping the prologue because the prologue just goes into a whole lot of stuff about the backstory of these family heritage, which to Tolkien was very important because that's what he valued. It seems one of the things he really valued was just creating like, no, this was real. This may as well have been real. That all the details are going to be there, and that meant a lot to him. Mm-hmm. And so it gets kind of dry sometimes in those books, even in the books themselves too, because it's just important to him.
Yeah, I've tried the books. I couldn't get into them because of that. That's a reason I'm not a fan of fantasy books, because they just like, there are chapters where it just stops the momentum of the story. And he's like, now we're going to talk about the backstory for a long time. And you're like, oh, come on.
Why?
Yeah.
We should, I think if you just let
That's the way
yourself
Dune
just
is too. I couldn't get into Dune for the same reason. It's like, now it's a Bene
too bad.
Gesserit chapter. We're going to learn about history, everyone. You're like, fuck. Again?
Get to the knife fights. I know. It's sorry. It's I don't know if you just let yourself skip it. You know enough about it. You could just skip it.
That's true.
I mean, and
at
that
this
way
point,
you could,
I can go backwards with the movies that exist.
Yeah. You know enough.
For these
So
two
maybe try
specific
that. Just be
examples.
like, all right, fine.
Turns out you
history,
can just
history.
skip it. It doesn't really.
It's not gonna. It's not. You're not gonna not know what's happening because you know this stuff well enough.
I used to do that with. I have read like all of Michael Crichton's books, and he does that within the chapters. And I used to skip over that shit too.
You'd be like,
So I should just
there
skip
you
entire
go. They're
chapters.
just like, there's some wanking there showing us how smart you are,
No, he's
Michael.
like-
Thank you.
He's like, let me tell you exactly how, in reality, dinosaurs could come back. I'm going to tell you because it's real.
That's right.
And you're like, okay,
Yeah,
Michael.
Thanks,
Thanks, Michael.
That's not what I bought this book for, Michael.
I want a dinosaur biting a guy off a toilet. Give it to me.
But yeah, I mean, you could try that too. Dune is that way too, to some extent. You
Yeah.
know it well enough now that you could probably just be like, all right, you're sitting there going through your lore.
Then
That's
I
fine,
would just
but-
rather watch the movie, because then I'm just going to be rewatching the movie at a slower pace in my head with Timothy
that's
Chalamet
fair. I
in
guess
there
so.
and freaking
I guess
Rebecca
so.
Ferguson.
I don't know. I still think, but some of the action sequences in the original book are just as good. And same with Lord of the Rings. There's some great parts that are. It's not. It's just different. It's just done different, and some parts are better in the sense of like how things are, like how things play out, or how things are like how it's said, or what you get, how you get a sense of the scene or the action in the novel versus the movie. So it's kind of nice to have both. But yeah,
It's always nice to have both.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I'm going to keep trying to stick on this point, I'm going to try to start from the beginning.
Stick.
This is great.
Go ahead.
Great tangents. Let's keep it going.
Okay.
The prologue to the first sequence where Frodo meets Gandalf. All of that shit holds together because of the music. Howard Shore's music. We were talking about like what's the best score of all time. I'm throwing my hat in this one. This is
Really?
top three.
It was bugging me.
I love this score. I think the score drives. It is a little. I can see how maybe it's a little over-scory.
Doesn't
Yeah,
There's
stop.
a lot of
go.
score, but it hits
doesn't stop.
every time. It doesn't stop, but I love it. Every second of it,
When
I
they
love
have
it.
those like close-ups, it's like, oh, this swelling orchestra, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, bro, we just saw him sitting there for like 10
We
minutes.
know. He's happy.
Yeah.
He's sad. He's
Yeah.
suffering. Whatever. We got the point. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
It works
I
on
know.
me. Don't know why.
Yeah,
Love
I
every
get it.
second
I
of it.
get it.
Hey,
I like
yeah.
it. No, this
It is
is a
what it is.
very. I don't know what this is a very romantic film.
Yep.
It just,
Deep friendships, deep eye contact, lots of
Yeah,
really long
right?
stairs. TC, you haven't seen nothing yet with the long stairs. Let me tell you
I
something.
know. God, I know. Especially, yeah, I know. I know.
Oh, boy.
There's a lot of that.
But this is the best one, TC.
No, I know, but if you're willing to go along with that, I think there's a style to this that can be grating
Oh,
if you're not ready for it or not willing to just go with it. Like a lot of the character reaction shots, like you're getting them. All right, we got to see what each of the 9 think of this. You know, it's sort of like this happened. Face shot.
And I can recognize that because when I'm watching, I'm like, in other shittier movies, this would annoy me because that's what this is doing. But because I'm so involved in everything that's going on, I'm just like, but I love it now, you know? Because it's always it's like a threshold type of thing, right? Like anything can be good if you're into it.
if you're into it, but
Yeah,
also
right.
I think that
That's why those Hallmark movies they work well with the the 50-year-old women.
With the right audience.
Yeah.
They're sitting at home, they're doing nothing. This really hits them,
Yep.
right? But also the casting is so fucking good.
It's the best casting ever. Best casting
I
ever.
love watching each and every one of these characters. So I don't mind if I'm getting a face shot. I get a little annoyed. It's like, okay, Frodo's in pain. That's enough of that.
Yep,
All right,
we
whatever.
get
It's not enough. Keep it on there. Look at his eyes.
Yeah.
Look at how good that makeup is. Fuck yeah, this is so cool.
I know. but each one of those is just awesome. Like I think every single one of those cast, and that's 9 of them, and it's just, to me, each one is just amazing. Like really well done.
They
and
all,
each of them
TC, do they
is,
stand
like,
out to you as a
taking
first
it.
watch? Those characters. It's not like you have boring characters, right? I mean, I think that
Not even confused with Harry Potter, I guess.
I mean,
but,
the whole story is so unique. I mean, that,
Mhm.
I will give it, I'll respect it for that.
and it might. I mean,
and
I don't know if you,
the amount of characters. So the fact that you have that many, spinning plates is impressive.
and they all a lot of them have their own arc, even within this first movie, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little
it's
bit.
like a little bit, and I mean, it's enough for this movie. Like, especially from where they end like in the middle of an arc, kind of, where
Right.
it's they're
Well,
changing.
they don't have a whole lot of time to spend on each of them, but you get enough of a
But
taste
enough.
of it. Like, no, you get enough. Like, oh, Sam's not used to leaving the home. This is like new for him.
But then
so
at the
that's
end,
it.
he's crawling through the water to get with Frodo.
Right,
like
right.
the
But actually,
Merry
I
and
mean, in the
Pippin,
book, it
they're
was-
kind of
yeah.
pushovers. They're very happy-go-lucky. And in the first fight with the ring rays, they cower and they don't fight the ring rays. But by the end,
Yeah.
they're throwing rocks at the
Right,
orcs.
I know, right,
you know?
right. And then you have a great the Legolas Gimli relationship is really fun, and that gets like more, and all of those things. And the book is kind of like that too, in the sense of that it doesn't really go into the relationships and interactions a whole lot. You just get kind of hints of it too, in the same way, in a sense. I mean, in the book, Sam was more adventurous, wanted to adventure even more than Frodo did. So it's a little bit of a difference there, but I think it works well in the movie with Sam's character is like his role is to protect Frodo, and he's willing to sacrifice everything for that, even if he's afraid to leave the Shire or whatever. And that works really well too. But you're right. I feel like that is true. There's not a lot of time spent on that. On this, like, oh, this is this character's arcs, but there's just enough that's given that each one of them feels like you kind of know who they are, and they're fun, and like with
You get to know them in fun ways, right? It's not like,
right.
I'm like this because I'm angry. It's like, and it shows you instead. Like these guys are bumbling idiots and they like to eat mushrooms and they like food. This guy likes food. He gets hit in the head with an apple. Like, that's all great ways to learn how a character is.
Gandalf has such a great range of being like serious.
They come in punks.
scared.
I'm getting one. They're like little drunk hobbits, fun loving.
Again, no, they're awesome. Yeah, again, they don't have a lot to. They're not given a lot of opportunity to like demonstrate themselves, but they make maximum use of it. Like, it seems, and it's really awesome.
And you guys, and John, even you were talking about how they linger on faces too long, but I think this movie really balances out like moving this epic book at a super brisk pace, but lingering or staying on certain things long enough where you feel like a weight to what's going on. Like the whole scene of Frodo almost dying. It seems almost linear.
I just
back.
I agree. I don't mind it. It's to me, it's noticeable. I don't know. I'm not necessarily criticizing it. It's just noticeably different than other movies, and in terms of how it does that. And the funny thing is, I think you were sort of saying this too. In a shitty film, this would really suck.
Yep.
In a shitty film, all of those like lingering on the face and stuff would just be really annoying and cheap. And so,
but
that's
the acting is so good, and the acting, like the story of any given moment, if you're into it, is really good. And the backgrounds you get to look at are beautiful. Like, there's just so much going on.
But the people are, and again, that's the other thing that's. From what little I know, I am sure you can speak to this from the behind the scenes stuff. The cast was really into this.
Oh yeah,
and so they were really into their characters.
Even people who didn't read the book had people around them being like we can get into how Viggo was cast, but he was cast while they were already shooting because they fired the guy that was hired for Aragorn in the beginning, and he got a phone call and he talked to Peter Jackson for 3 hours. Peter was trying to like get him on the set, and Viggo's son was standing right there listening to the conversation, and at the end he's like, you got to say yes, Lord of the Rings is the best, and Viggo's like, I have no idea what Lord of the Rings is, and his son's fucking do it, Dad, do it, it's a really good book series. And he's like, okay,
all right,
so he signed. He had a 3-hour-long phone conversation with Peter, signed on. He's freaking Aragorn.
Was that was Viggo anything before that?
Yeah, he was. There's nothing any of us have seen. I think he's Australian, isn't he? So like Peter Jackson is from Australia. I think Viggo is Australian, so he knows
Gotcha.
These really good looking Australian dudes that know how to swing a sword. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he was awesome. Sean Bean as Boromir was awesome. Again, just really
back before
like
you didn't expect a first episode Sean Bean death, right?
Death, right?
Yeah.
I know, right? Before Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
But he played his role really well, and so like every one of them. But I still think Gandalf's
and
my
every
favorite
character is
standout,
important. Like if you point at every single character, they all move the plot. Like none of them, unlike The Hobbit, and it's not necessarily because the book is the same way, but The Hobbit, they have a bunch of dwarves and a lot of them don't do anything, right? In this movie, you could point at huge direction-changing plot moments for every single one of these characters that happens. And I think that's, I don't know, in terms of plot, TC, I mean, that's like, it's pretty great to have that happen and not seem forced in any way. We're like, well, it's his turn to do something. Well, it's his turn. It's like, oh no, his character led him to do that because that's who he is. Like when Pippin knocks the skeleton into the well when they're in the Mines of Moria, and that whole shitstorm starts, like that didn't seem like a start of an action scene for the sake of a start of an action scene. It seemed like this happened because he's a fucking bumbling idiot and he bumps into things and he's uncareful with stuff. Like it does that over and over again. It's amazing.
Again, it's a
them
great
cooking food in the middle of the night. They're just fucking hungry
Yeah.
hobbits. It's not like they want an action scene here. This is just how they act. To me,
it's a great sequence.
He's like maybe not.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Mhm.
Hey,
All right.
I'll go with it, Denny, because I know you
It's-
love it so
It's
much.
great writing,
Yes.
TC. I'm trying to pull you in here, TC.
It's not gonna happen, Denny.
It's not gonna happen.
Okay.
I'm just a listener today.
Okay.
Aw.
It's been nice knowing you, TC.
Well,
Talk
how
to
do
you
we
in a
make
couple
the
hours.
next 4 hours bearable
I'll
for
see
you,
you. I'll see
TC?
you tomorrow.
Yeah, you might need to go
for
get
a
some
bit.
coffee, man. Because
Yeah. Oh, I do. I have it on, and I have my little heater so it stays warm.
Oh,
And I
nice.
just sit
Very
back.
fancy.
that's good.
Mhm.
Oh, I want to get one of those.
Oh, it's great.
I
Put it on your desk. It just sits there
Yeah.
and keeps it nice and warm.
I'm gonna. I've been talking to myself about doing that because otherwise I have to get the closed lid coffee ones.
Oh,
but
yeah,
then I'm,
no,
like,
it's great.
drinking through plastic.
And they have timers, so you do a 2-hour timer, and then you don't have to worry about anything.
This episode
happening.
brought to you by
Brought to
Coffee
you by
warmer.
Desk
Coffee
Warmer.
warmer by someone in China, probably.
Okay.
You're gonna
Back to the
hopefully you'll at least appreciate a lot of the trivia, TC, because there's some stuff.
I
that
think
doesn't
what I
happen
like,
anymore.
I appreciate is any of the production stuff for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is at least probably one of the most storied productions ever. Like,
It is.
in
So it's
terms of-
comparable in terms of number of special effects. It's 3 movies, but this one movie has like twice as much special effects as Blade Runner, which was up there. There's like 3 hours of behind the scenes
Plus-
documentaries.
right.
There's four 3.5 hour long commentary tracks.
Right.
Like that's fucking insane.
But you've got the material that's massive with massive lore behind it. You have a huge ensemble cast, and then you have huge special effects. Like all of this stuff just sort of adds up to be like this, like kind of one of the biggest in terms of production and stories to tell and
It
lore
made
and
it
all of that. Like
it made a country popular to visit. People know,
That's
people want to
true.
go to New Zealand now because of this movie.
Actually, it
Yeah,
probably
so-
kicked off some of the
Yeah.
video production and film production in those regions too.
Probably.
You know,
yeah, you can still go see like Hobbiton and stuff there. I think like they have that all preserved.
They do. Hobbiton they have, yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, everything else is destroyed almost.
Yeah. Well.
Per usual.
Yeah.
Happens.
So yeah, Frodo and Gandalf meeting, that scene just hits, John. It hits me. They're such good friends. They convey it so well. The way the
Well,
music is and the acting is
it's
so
also
perfect.
Yeah, it's just perfect again with those characters. That Frodo has this innocence about him, the way he's played. Gandalf again is my favorite, just in terms of I don't know who else could have done this. The way that he does is being you're old, you're grumpy, you're wise, you're powerful, you're funny. He like pulls all this stuff together.
His
in
line
this great
deliveries,
way.
he has like 5 of my favorite line deliveries in movies in
Yeah.
this movie. Just the way he decides to say things.
Yes.
It's got a great
I agree.
voice.
Yeah, I totally agree. But to do and again, the book also really describes him like this too. That he's funny, smart, grumpy. Like he really lashes out at people, gets really annoyed, gets really just fed up with how stupid people are sometimes, and how he has to go and fucking save them all the time. And
You know who he based it on?
who?
Tolkien himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like he was reading the book because he wasn't a huge fan of this book before he joined the movie, but he read it after he was.
So Ian McKellen based it on Tolkien.
On Tolkien,
himself.
yeah. So then he started looking at. He's like, "What should I base this on?" And he was looking at videos of Tolkien, and there's a video interview of McKellen talking about changing. He's like talking in his normal voice, and he's like, "So what you do for Tolkien is you kind of lower your voice and you kind of scrunch up your shoulders," and he transforms as he's describing what he's doing into Gandalf, and then says, "That's Tolkien," and you're like, "Jesus Christ, this guy's an amazing actor." Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool tribute too, to think of that like he's emulating the author of all of this.
Yeah, he really likes the idea that he put Tolkien in the movie.
Yeah, I like that. That's really Tolkien or Tolkien.
I don't know. You would know better than me.
I don't honestly. I've heard Tolkien is what I've
Tolkien.
sort of.
Okay, that's probably
yeah.
right.
Okay. Anyway, I thought with all those commentaries they would have been saying the author.
They all got Australian accents. I don't know what the fuck they're saying half the time.
Tolkien. You just don't even know.
Got a bunch of British people, a bunch of Australian people in there. It's just a bunch of. I had subtitles on the whole time. I still couldn't even reading it. It's rough. I'm joking, kind of.
We haven't gone beyond the prologue. Oh, we got to the prologue.
Oh, we got to the second scene.
The first meeting.
First meeting. Yeah.
You drink some coffee, TC.
I got it right here.
Hey.
Then you got all the scenes with Bilbo and Gandalf in Bag End, which are some of the best parts of the movie to me. Yeah. Just the acting in those scenes has got to be the best acting in the movie between those two characters.
But I also love the sense in their place too. I think so. You have them in their characters, but him in his house and his place. Seeing him like running around rummaging through things, Gandalf bumping his head on stuff, but then also as he's like coming up through Hobbiton and seeing all the different the people doing their stuff, and it's just such this sense of place, and culminating with the party where you get like all of everybody there, and it really does this great sense of a big gathering and a big party, like as it's all happening.
And the thing is, TC, you're saying you think you saw green screen stuff, but there's probably a lot of special effects in this movie that you missed. Like Hobbiton, they built and it was real, but then all of the interior shots were in sound stages. They built interiors. So then also they had like some scenes. They had a miniature version of Bag End, which is Bilbo's house, and then they had a larger human-sized version. And they would film both there. Like they would have Ian Holm in the larger one, so that he was like a normal-sized person if he was interacting with the background more than Gandalf was in that particular scene. And then Gandalf in those scenes was filming against a green screen, and then they would insert him. And then vice versa if Gandalf was interacting with the set more, right? So they had the character that was interacting with the set in either a miniature. So like Gandalf was in the miniature version, so he's all bent over and stuff, and they would just insert it. So they had to focus on like positions in every one of the shots. Right. They had to focus on eye lines for every one of the shots because they needed to know where the person would be looking to make eye contact with this person
and
who's not there.
Green screen or not, TC, you got to admit that it never, I don't know. I'll say this. I never doubted that there were small people and big people. Like it never like throughout the film, I'm never thinking, oh, they're not really small.
And it's because it's not all green screen. They do all the tricks in the book. They have forced perspective shots where you have Elijah Wood sitting 3 feet behind Gandalf in the cart in the beginning. He's just sitting 3 feet behind it, and it's a fixed camera, and the stuff he's sitting against is bigger, and the stuff in the front is smaller, so it all looks the same, and he just looks smaller. And they even have setups where they move the camera. Like before this movie, no one had ever done a forced perspective shot with a moving camera. They had tables that were connected against the camera where if you moved the camera, a part of the table would move. Wow. And they would be able to you could rotate around a scene and keep the in-camera illusion in the fucking movie. It's like, it's fucking magic. Cool.
I didn't notice any of it. So there you go.
Right? Yeah. And I'm sure, like you saw CG. I think it's.
I didn't even notice they were smaller. Honestly, most of the time you couldn't tell.
Oh, really? I
don't know. Yeah, at least I couldn't.
No, like hobbits are supposed to be half the size of people.
But they shot so close up. Every time you had a medium shot, they were normal at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. You got a lot of those close-up shots, so you don't even know because that face is big no matter what when you get the camera close enough.
But they're so But
But
I get lost in it because they have so many tricks that like sometimes watching it. I'm just like, how do they get that? How do they get that shot? Like, there's the shot where they're in the, I'm skipping ahead here, the prancing pony where they're walking in and they're all looking up at the guy at the bar and somebody walks between them. They had this thing, I forget what it's called, I'll get to it later.
Yeah, like in the bar, you could clearly tell
that they were smaller. Yeah. I mean, they were going for that the whole time. they made it to be that way. Like it's I'll go through all the special effects. It's pretty. I think it's awesome. Hopefully you guys do too. But yeah, the bag end scenes, like the one shot I could tell there was some digital fuckery going on was where Gandalf comes in, fuckery. Bilbo takes his hat and runs down the hallway to get some cheese or whatever. I could kind of see some off lighting in that shot, but the fact that they have him, like they're handing off the hat and the cane and he's picking it up from this giant guy like that, and it's a long shot too. I just accept that it might not look perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's a cool effect. Cool. What else John, what else you got from the bag end scenes?
In the book, it was also Frodo and Bilbo also share the same birthday, so it was a combo party. But the book just sort of skips that, or the movie skips that because again,
can't take the spotlight away from Bilbo.
Everything has to be economy. I think for the movie, they can't be like, oh yeah, it's Frodo's birthday too, but then we got to explain that or talk about that. But no, this is Bilbo's moment. Let's
simplify
it
everything.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I over and over again when there's differences, you can really most of the time understand. Like it's like no, they just had to keep it streamlined. Otherwise, it would just be too much exposition or explanation or whatever.
They had a hard time editing it down because they had so much stuff that everyone liked. And then somebody in the editing room had the epiphany that what they needed to do was focus on Bilbo's story specifically. And once they had the idea that they were going to, there's in the book, it's all these characters, right? And it kind of it's not necessarily, Frodo's story. It's not Frodo's story in the book, right, John? From what they said. It's just like it's about this time and place and the things that happened, sort of thing.
No, he's
right?
not like the hero in the book.
No, you just it just again the book is like the book is kind of has a historical feeling. It's just like going wherever it needs to go.
But it's not like this is the main character. This is Frodo. Right. He's the main character.
No, it doesn't feel like that at all.
Yeah, but the movie does feel like that because they focused on him to get the edit down, right? Because they were finding it impossible to edit it down. But once they were able to be like, okay, this scene doesn't really affect Frodo that much, we can cut it out. They let them have like an excuse to start cutting things out of the movie.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think for moviegoers like me, who like run of the mill, like by the numbers, easy to digest type of plots, having a main character, a single one, is always a good thing.
It's easier to follow, for sure.
Because even if you're lost to the other characters, you'd be like, well, Frodo still got the ring. He's feeling a little sick from the stab wound, but I think he's going to make it. He's got the elf girl helping him out.
Right.
She's got water powers.
One thing they don't go at all into they don't have time in the movie, but the idea of like, well, what is Frodo's relationship to Bilbo? There's very little said about that.
He calls him uncle, doesn't he?
Yeah, but it's like, why is he like hanging out with Bilbo? His parents died in a boating accident. They drowned. Which was considered scandalous that they went out on a boat at all, as far as hobbits were concerned.
Because hobbits don't like adventure.
No, they do not. That's kind of the general sort of fun idea of them as a people, that they're very like just they want to be home, they want to eat, they want to drink and garden.
They're the hamsters of people.
Yeah, and so the idea that somebody would go out on a boat is like scandalous. Almost like they got what they deserved doing that sort of dangerous.
But that
thing.
makes Frodo being able to do this entire journey make sense, right? Because his parents were the bravest hobbits of all time.
Oh yeah. Well, Bilbo doing the journey in the first place was again. There's a great in the Hobbit. There's a great funny sequence in the book. In the movies, I don't even remember how well they do this, but
I can tell you that probably not that well. Knowing those movies,
but in the book, Bilbo is just like he's just sitting there, and Gandalf puts his mark on his door, saying that he's going to be the burglar for the dwarves, and they just all come in and start partying at his house, drinking and eating, and there's like all these dwarves there, and he's just freaking out. And it's only when they start sort of insulting him that he's like, all right, fine, I'll do this. I'll go and like steal the dragon gold, whatever you want. Anyway, it's just sort of it's a really nice, this sort of reluctant adventurer kind of thing that happened in The Hobbit, and Frodo gets hit with that too. Like, and that's kind of the general theme is like these hobbits are put in this position where like Frodo is the one that has to do this, and he's the most reluctant out of all of them to like seek adventure or to seek any kind of like fame or glory or power, which is kind of the point too, because that's the idea of the ring, is that it's going to corrupt you.
Isn't that? I mean, and that translates to real world stuff, even though it's like a deep fantasy. You'd rather have people in power that don't want power. Sure, but that's not usually what you get, and
right.
Usually, it doesn't lead to good things.
So this is an opportunity to say one thing that's kind of interesting too about how Tolkien saw this book. He would kind of bristle when people would talk about allegory or comparisons of his stories to. I mean,
he can't stop us. He cannot stop us.
No, totally right. He can't. You write something. How people interpret it is not up to you.
I don't know.
So fuck off.
Naomi's a huge fan of these books too, and she brings that up. But there are some lines in these movies that, like, how could you not? Like, there's this when they're talking about, like, I don't want to be here. I want to be back in the Shire, and you're like, you can't. You know, I forget exactly what the line is, but it's like you don't choose.
You don't choose this.
You don't choose the path that's given to you. You can only choose with the time that's been given, or something like that. Like how can you not take a lesson, like a life lesson out of that sort of thing?
No, you can't. I think, and again, this is total speculation on my point. Like if you read the prologue where Tolkien himself is saying, "Look, this is an allegory. This is meant to be what it is. It's meant to be the story itself. I do not make it to be anything more than that." And I think maybe he bristled at this idea that it has to be more to be valuable. Like to be valuable, it has to have some kind of second meaning, as opposed to him working his ass off to really try to make something real that didn't.
Why would you make up this entire world if it didn't mean anything? Because it's fun? I don't know.
Right.
Fuck off.
Because it transports you.
Yeah.
Right. And you can take away things from it, and that's fine. Maybe what he was more like annoyed at is this idea is that's what gives it its meaning. That, oh yes, this is an allegory for the experiences you had in World War I or II, or how you felt like we were just as bad as the Nazis if we were going to go bomb civilians. And so that may be true, and there may be things that leak into the books based on his experience, but I think what he bristled at was saying that was the principal meaning. That's what gave it value. Mm-hmm. And instead of what gives it value to him was creating this thing. And I think, and because even like you can listen to, like, if you listen to commentaries or whatever on the value of, say, Lord of the Rings, and people will think that you can't value something just because it's fantasy. It has to have a second meaning that's really the core of it, and that's what makes it valuable. And I think that's interesting. But when I talk, like you said,
because it's
really
junk
well,
otherwise, right? People think
right,
it's
I guess
junk.
so. It's just pure. It's pure like fantasy or escapism. But I thought you said it really well. Like that's what I love about it is this feeling of transportation, this feeling of being of taken somewhere else, and that's what I think. There's other things that allegory, whatever, is kind of cool, but to be transported is awesome.
And it does it in this way that I like, and I'm not sure how you do it otherwise with this scope of things, but like this movie throws you into it. And I'm saying that even though there's a 7-minute long prologue, but like it throws you in this world and it expects you to understand what you're seeing without explaining everything to you as you go along. You know what I mean? Like a lot of science fiction and fantasy, in movies, they kind of explain things. Inception explains the thing over and over again to you as you're walking through the movie. This one has some exposition, as it's more like plot exposition, though. It's like these people, it tells you the world you're in the first 7 minutes, and then you're in the world the entire time. And then you're focusing on the story specifically. Like, no one's like, hey, how long has this town been here? Oh, like, you know, it's been here this long. It's like, no, who the fuck is that character over there? Why is he staring at me? And then all of it's plot focused and character focused within the world that they so freaking brilliantly built in the first 7 minutes of this movie. And the fact that it is only that and everything else is so good, like around it, just, I don't know, it's engrossing. Like, I don't know how else to describe
it's amazing. Again, I know it didn't work for you, TC. You have such the tolerant face on, so thank you.
Yes, like, sorry, TC. This is going to be a rough one for you, okay?
Oh, I'm practicing my poker face.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, you're doing fine. Sorry, you're doing great. I'm just telling you, just good job there.
Nice hat, by the way, TC. It's a good hat.
But it's awesome, Denny. Like, you haven't read the book, can be taken in and transported. Like pretty much immediately after that kind of, they can do the prologue the way they do it and put you into Hobbiton, and you're there. Mm-hmm. And that's just like,
and I stay there the entire
time.
Yeah.
Wow.
It speaks to how well done it was.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I'm happy for this movie makes me so happy, TC. Like I wish movies did this to me more. This movie is one of the only movies that does it thoroughly.
Wow.
And this isn't the other thing that's great about this too. This isn't, I mean, there's inspiring moments or happy moments or whatever, but everything is still kind of dark. Like everything in Lord of the Rings, like everything's waning. The elves are losing their power. The magic is disappearing from the land. If they destroy the ring, that's actually going to diminish the elves and everybody else too. It's going to diminish the power that the other rings have. So there's not like this happy-go-lucky. Even if they win, it's not it's not like everybody's
disagreed in the
feeling great
movies
about
though. I feel like the movies always dangles the return to the Shire, and the Shire is such a great place to be, isn't it? Look at that. You get to have drunk, you have good food, you hang out with your friends. It's all nice and grassy.
True. I mean, it sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
that's fair. I think, but it's interesting.
I think that's part of the reason.
Less with him.
I mean, the second and third movies go there, and that's part of the reason. Yeah. For me, they're less enjoyable movies is because you don't have...
They get darker.
They get darker and darker, which for the story is great, but there's not this feeling of like, this movie to me is the best because it starts. It's the start of the whole thing, and you get this... I get this real sense of like leaving a safe place to go somewhere dangerous, and the other two movies, not really spoilers, TC, you stay in a dangerous place. Yeah. The next two movies.
That's probably not surprising.
It's not surprising, right? They've already gone out into the Shire.
They've already done the work.
Right.
And we can maybe too much spoilers, but in the book, like at the very end, Hobbiton isn't what it used to be, even when they go back at the very end of all.
And that may or may not be different from what the movies do, TC. So it's not a spoiler at all.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm not too worried about the spoilers. I'll take it.
Yeah, you're fine. But, I don't think we need to protect you.
Right.
But I like that in a way that it. I like that sense of the films. That just adds more realism to this, and that message. That's again, it's like these are dark times. You don't get to choose what time you're in. You only get to decide what to do with the time you have. Mm-hmm. And that's still the theme of the books is kind of like that too. Even though you can take some inspirational stuff or be like, hey, that's cool. These hobbits did what they had to do despite, or they got what they did what they needed to do despite all the odds. Or whatever, but still everything's kind of shit around them, and things are still kind of going not so great. And you don't have it's like all of this really cool time is already gone when these stories start. Like the elves used to be super magical and do all these really cool things and have all this great power in the land, and that's all gone and fading. And the elves,
and it's because Sauron is gaining power and squishing their power.
No, it's not quite that either. I don't know. I'm sure there's some lore explanation for it.
Are they losing their rings? Sauron. Are they misplacing their rings? They're dropping them down the waterfalls in Rivendell.
I can't keep track of fucking glasses or a ring. I have a problem. Right. So yeah, honey, where's my ring of power? Have you seen my ring of power?
Son of a bitch!
Fuck! Did I leave it at Did I leave it at mom and dad's? Shit! I gotta go back.
I told you should have glued an air tag onto one. You fucking idiot.
That's right. I had a ring of power. I'd have to glue an air tag to it.
Press the button again.
What do you mean you
I
lost
can hear it. It's in the couch.
It's in the couch.
It's okay though. I got it on GPS.
Yeah,
I just gotta go down that way.
Hey, wait, what? I was playing with it at the restaurant. I'll call him. I'll see. Maybe I left it with my credit card.
I was thinking, should I go invisible and bounce on this check? And I was like, nah. And then I lost it.
That's right.
Oh shit. But no, I don't think it's because of Sauron and the rings. Actually, initially, like some of the rings helped stave off, like the rings that the elves made staved off some of the diminishing of the magic. And so, and that's why when the one ring is destroyed, it somehow diminishes those other rings, and then the magic will be fading even faster, and the elves will fade even faster. Like Galadriel says that too. Like after she passes her own test, there, like if she will fade, she will go. The ring will, if the ring is destroyed, she's going to be going west, and that's like.
That stuff is confusing to me. Naomi's tried to explain. Well, let's not go there.
Yeah,
that's a spoiler. That's spoiler.
Too hard to explain either. But the idea is just that, yeah, Hobbiton's a nice, happy place, and that's a nice part of the arc here is that they're in this really awesome, sort of comfortable place, eating, drinking, just hanging out.
Everything is fine until they get this issue that. Like they couldn't push out, right? Like they can't
that they have no control over,
and it's not like they can remove the issue. It's like no, you're in danger, and you're the only one who can fix this. So the setup there is just it's so nice, and the way that Frodo reacts to it, just instantly character setting is just like, what must I do? Like he doesn't bitch. He's not scared. He's just like, fuck, this is a terrible situation. What do I tell me what to do?
Like the thing in the books too with hobbits, and you see this like. They're such a really cool. They're such a cool. They have such these great characteristics.
Are they a species?
Yeah, I don't know what to call them, right? But the characteristics they have are so cool because they kind of are just homebodies. They don't want adventure, but they have this amazing resilience, and that's there in the book too. Like they could be like they just faced like
because they don't wear
the
shoes.
Nazgul or
they
whatever.
walk all over the
Right.
place. They do farm work
Yeah.
with no freaking
Well, they
shoes
have
on.
furry feet, so it's okay. They have furry, calloused feet.
They can walk
But-
over razor sharp rocks
but they
with no
can be
shoes.
like right, but they can like face goblins, orcs, or whatever, and then they're like wondering about breakfast. There's something that's
It's
just,
because
this is
in the
really
book,
wonderful.
it's because they're sneaky, right? They're hard to see. According to what Naomi
Well-
says, it's like they're good at getting around because they're not only small, but they're really like quiet, and there's some kind of magic around like people not seeing them a lot of the time.
Huh.
No, they're good at camouflage, but the other idea is just that they don't dwell on things that make them sad or whatever. Like they're not like, oh God, that was terrible. Now we're really miserable, and you kind of see there's
So they're
just
idiots, is what you're saying.
well, I guess, but you see that in
They're really
He's nodding.
stupid.
Yeah.
They're really
Right,
dumb.
but
They're
you
just
see it in Mary and Pippin.
nothing
They're
going
just-
on
they're
in
just
there.
like they're just like
Dude,
having a good time.
I think
and
we
they're
have a
just-
really stupid cat, and he has no brains. And I think of like our cat as Mary and Pippin. Like that's
right.
they're just these perfect
that's
embodiment of
right.
just like Bill and
Right.
Ted almost. They're just like
Yeah.
happy idiots.
I carry the ring.
I like
Yeah.
them.
I'm
I like
carrying
them
the
being-
ring.
Yeah, I like them being the heroes. That's
Second
just
breakfast?
it's a fun angle on these. These are the hobbits are what like they're looking to for salvation, and that's fun. That makes for a really nice sort of angle on sort of the whole hero journey thing. It's not
And
like
TC, pay
it's
attention
not
to
like
their characters.
Aragorn is the guy that's going to go get this done. It has to
Right.
be the Hobbit, and that's pretty cool.
And I mean, it's a really cool plot device to have it so like everybody else except for a select few hobbits are
Right.
going to turn and become evil with this ring. So like the
Exactly.
good guys are like, I can't take it because I know I'll
Right.
become bad, so you have
Right.
to have it. And then like the
Exactly.
middle people will be like, maybe I could use the power, and then they become evil. And then there's the really evil people who are like, I want the fucking ring so I can be evil.
Give me the ring.
yeah.
Right.
It's
So
great.
that's the other idea. Like that. Yeah. That's just a really nice plot device with the ring that it corrupts. And the hobbits, it does still corrupt them, but very slowly, comparatively speaking. And so that again just adds this really nice plot device where okay, so it has to be the Hobbit that has to do this. The Hobbit doesn't want to do it. The Hobbit doesn't want to adventure, but here we go.
And I mean, there are
And
just
yet,
some scenes that
you know.
seem kind of low key, maybe like the scene where Frodo towards the end of the movie, he wanders off to like think about things or something, and then Sean Bean's character comes up and tries like is starting to be like starts out being nice, and then tries to
Right.
convince him to give him the ring, and then starts
right.
trying to take the ring, and Frodo gets away. And that's when Frodo fucking bails on everybody who's like,
Right.
who's just
Because
like, I
he's
don't
he's
trust
thinking-
anybody else.
Right, exactly.
That's like a
and that's what
huge-
Galadriel was telling him, right?
Yeah.
That you got to do this on your own. And again, it's just a really nice plot device in terms of making it so that he has to feel like he has to shoulder this burden by himself. And fucking like Sean Bean was so awesome in this role, doing it the way he did, like showing so much conflict and remorse afterwards, where it's just a great like his arc was awesome, like the way he's like in the book
Because he has a
like
he has
this
a
too.
failing like you kind of get it from this movie. His
Yeah.
people are not doing great, and he
Right.
needs help. Right?
Right,
So like
this
he
ring would
sees,
fucking solve the problem.
yeah,
for
he
him,
thinks
right?
it probably
Right.
wouldn't, at least in the long term.
Short term, it
Yeah.
definitely would. Long term, it would fuck everything
Right.
probably. But that's the idea of power. That's what happens.
Yeah,
So again, and he just shows he's so the conflict and the remorse.
he's trying to be a good guy, right? He really
Right.
is. You can tell.
right.
But
Yeah,
then the ring does have
it
the
shows
power, the actual like it is magic, so it does like take control of you to some extent, and he does all
Right.
that shit
and
too,
that's where
really well.
you do get right. Despite whatever Tolkien might want, there's great allegories to that about how power really is, about how it is the idea of being able to control what happens and control what happens to other people, and how that corrupts you, and how that's like very hard not to let it corrupt you. I think that it's a really nice theme throughout the books. And again, it's just a really brilliant to have the idea of, okay, but then you have this race that is slightly more resistant to that, but they're small and they don't want to go out or do anything. They're just kind of homebodies, and they're the ones that
They're all
then have to,
hungover
like-
every single day.
Right. So you got like these. So it's just this great contrast. You got this fucking like stallion of a man, Aragorn, there, but he's not the one that gets to do it. You know,
And he
it's
has the
gotta be-
most.
it's gotta be
The way
Frodo.
he rejects the ring is the best too. Like
Yeah.
that's how you know he's the man, because he actually can
Yeah,
like
yeah.
go up to the ring, put his hands near it, and close
Right,
someone
go,
else's hand around it. And you're
"No."
like, yeah, this guy's the fucking man.
Yeah, I know. It was well done. Yeah, again, also spectacular casting and acting. Like Aragorn fucking looks like the king. Like
this dethrones Das Boat,
like
John. It dethrones it. This is the best ensemble piece ever. Give it to me.
Oh shit.
Give it to me, John. Dethrone it. It's amazing.
Give it to me, John.
It's so hard to say. That's cruel. That's cruel. I don't know, man.
We're close to the end of this list, John. Just dethrone it. It's been a long time since Das Boat.
I will easily say this is equivalent. I will easily say this is ensemble equivalent. I don't know. Das Boat.
There's some
so
naturalistic
different.
stuff going on in Das Boat. This movie has like distinct, memorable characters, right? That's a bit different.
I know it is different, but I don't know. I would say as far as I guess I would still say as far as casting goes, this might be the best
for sure
ensemble. As far as casting, man, I mean John Rhys Davies as Gimli is so good. Mm-hmm. He's so good as Gimli.
He suffered ridiculous. Throughout this production.
Oh really?
He suffered. Yeah, his he was allergic to the glue that kept his prosthetics on.
Oh Jesus!
So he could only film one every 3 days.
Fuck.
He had to recover. He put it on, suffered. By the end of the day, his eyes were swelling shut, and then he'd have to take them off, and then he'd have to recover for 2 days, so his face would fucking shrink back to normal.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's worth it.
Damn it.
It is worth it. Look at what they did.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah. That's worth it.
I don't know if there's another guy, another character actor to play like a supporting role and to have like, so we got him in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? And he's awesome there. Mm-hmm. And then a supporting role here in Lord of the Rings. I don't know. He's one of the best. Like I think he has so much charisma in his voice, like the way his voice can roar, and I don't know. He's wonderful.
Can you say that about everyone in this movie? Not knocking him individually, but that's like true
it
for
works.
everyone.
Like again, Orlando Bloom, like as an elf, you look pretty and composed and aloof, and that's what you want. That's what the elf is kind of supposed to be. Right,
he got cast 2 weeks out of drama school. This is the first thing he's been in.
Shit. Wow! Really?
He's from the Midwest. He came from nothing basically, and he left his life and family and everything he knew to travel to New Zealand to film this movie.
Holy shit!
How did he get like who found him?
It was auditions. He went to an audition. They had auditions all over the world for this movie. For all
man, they just had to look at him probably be like.
So what happened is they had the guy who played either Merry or Pippin, I forget. They told him, like, all right, Orlando, you're going to meet, I think it was Billy Boyd who plays Merry, or Pippin, rather. Sorry, I confused those two names. They were landing at the same airport in Australia, and they're like, just look out for each other. You'll be able to find him. And Billy Boyd walked up to Orlando Bloom and said, you look like an elf. And he's like, and Orlando's like, Billy? And he's like, yeah. That's how they found each other, is because he looks like a fucking elf, and that's why he was cast.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, one thing while we're on the subject of Pippin that is a little different in the book is it's called out pretty clearly in the book that Pippin is very young, like to the point where like in the council, Elrond is not recommending Pippin go because he's just too young for this, and it's not really like Merry and Pippin seem like sort of equivalent in age. Mm-hmm. They're like twins almost, it seems in the movie, which is fine. I think again it might have been really distracting to add like a whole other like character arc for Pippin being like this really young waif of a hobbit, and that they just might not have had time for that anyway to add that piece in. But
they wanted like reliable actors. He's in so much of the movie. I would imagine they wanted like an adult. Probably.
That's fair too. They'd be like, let's just like avoid all that quagmire here. Let's just make them about the same age and move on with
that.
And
history. Billy Boyd is so perfect.
Oh no,
role.
they're
Holy
both
crap.
awesome. They both are so likable as being like the.
I believe they're best friends. One of them's like slightly smart. It's like Beavis and Butthead basically. Like one of them's slightly smarter, but he's the one who pushes the dumber one into all this trouble that they're getting into.
Yeah, it works out nicely.
Yeah,
they're very entertaining.
Yeah.
So, and they add a nice bit of comic relief, even when they're fucking up and they're about to get like cause goblins to go and attack them. Mm-hmm. It's well done.
Mm-hmm. So we're at Bilbo's birthday. I have a list of scenes. Yeah. It's scene 3 out of 19. How are you guys doing on breaks? You good?
I could use
another
break.
coffee.
Okay, you want to take a little break right here?
Small break. We're an hour. Holy shit!
We're an hour in.
here.
We got a long way to go.